Hello, my squishies, and welcome to the Highland Cow Felt Along. Now, this is this kind of weird one today because I don't have a live audience, which is making me strangely, oddly nervous because you guys aren't there to sort of send me good love. But we're going to do it. So, to start off with, I ramble a lot of nonsense. Please feel free to fast forward, mute me, just, do as you wish. I'm going to ramble utter nonsense. I'm going to repeat myself lots of times. It's just me. Hello. But okay, let's start. So in your kit, you should have a felting mat. So this is the squishy foam mat that we're going to felt onto. It protects your surfaces and makes it easier to felt with. You'll also have your pre-felt here. This is the fabric that I've drawn a pretty picture on, and we're basically going to colour by numbers, or I like to say stab by numbers, this Highland cow onto. We've also got our felting needles in the kit. So these guys are what we're going to felt with. They've got one sharp barbed end. That's the end we're going to felt with, and the other end's got a wee hook on it. You'll see why in a second. These needles are very sharp. It will hurt if you stab yourself. Please try to avoid stabbing yourself. They might break as well. If they do break, always find all the bits. It's a really good idea to count your needles in and out at the end of each session and dispose of any broken needles carefully. In your kit, you've also got this little tool here. So this is just a holder, and what this does is it makes it easier to grip onto the needles. So to assemble the holder, what we do is you take this little peg out here. There's a wee groove on it, and you're going to place a needle in the groove with the hook over the thin end. So there's a larger end and a thinner end. Then pop that thinner end back into the tool there. So I'm going to do that one more time. So in your wee tool, you've got the peg, you pull it out, pop your needle sitting in the groove and just snug it up to the thinner end with the hook hanging over there, so you should be able to see that, and then pop that back in there, and that's what you'll felt with. Now when we're felting, we always want to felt in a straight line, either straight down, straight that way. You never want to bend your needles as you're pushing in and out of the foam, because that's when needles break. So we've got felt, the foam, needles. So you can get these holders in sort of 1, 3, 6 to make it faster if you like as well. I tend not to use them. I just use needles in my hand, and sometimes I even hold multiple at the same time. You'll see me doing that throughout. You've also got in your kit the most important thing, the fibre. So this is mostly Shetland wool. It's come off the sheep, it's been washed, dyed and brushed, and then just loosely brushed together to make what's called roving or tops. Now to use this, I'll put that bit away, you pull out little bits at a time that we're going to work with. So you grab one end and just gently pull, and you'll see lengths of hair or wool come out. So there's a few tricks. So if you, when you're trying to pull, have your hands too close together, you're literally pulling on either end of the same hair or fibre, so it's not going to pull out. And if there's any twist in it as well, twist is what holds yarn together. It's not, even if you have your hands far apart, you can't pull. So you want to make sure there's no twist, you have your hands nice and far apart, and just gently pull on one end. And we are going to take tiny amounts each time, and you're going to, there was an ongoing thing last time, trying to find different words for tiny, because I used tiny, small, little. I'm going to try and use different words this time, but who knows? Because the trick with needle felting is less is more, and we're going to build up layers and layers of colour. It makes stuff look really complicated, but it's just layering. So let's get on with the cow. Oh, I also have some cow facts for you, which I will sprinkle in throughout this felting, because this one's going to probably take about an hour and a half to get it mostly done, to get all the colours blocked in. So yes, with needle felting, I generally start with the furthest away things in the picture first and move forward. But this is a little different this time because, well, still kind of the same. This guy is normal. Previously I had done round frames, but now I'm moving out into bigger pictures with a dowel to hold it onto your wall. But we have to make the attachment first. So to do that, I'll put them back there. We're going to take little bits. I'm also going to move this down a wee bit. We're going to take this blue, sort of separate out a bit, put one end underneath, about half, just less than halfway. Spread that out there. Now you can add in more later, so don't put too much in just now. I'm going to take that all the way along to the end. And I'm going to grab my bit of dowel. I'm going to place that there and fold over all these ends. Because what we're going to do is we're going to use the fact that they are lengths of fibre and felt each side to each side. So if you grab your needles, and this is the only part where I'm going to warn you to be careful of the wooden dowel. You will break a needle if you hit the dowel. So work a little bit away from the dowel and just working along. Stab that. So we're going to do this a few times to begin with. We will, as the picture progresses, felt this in a lot firmer, but we're just going to sort of tack it in just now. I'm also going to pull this gently off the foam, turn it on to the other side and do some felting back through. You can see here the wool that's being pushed through. Normally we don't felt on the back, but because we're wanting to make sure this is well locked in, very locked in, I'm going to do a little bit there. And again, we will be going over this again, so as long as it's sort of vaguely held in there, and don't pull down too hard because this will sort of pull the felt out of shape at the moment. The more we felt into it, the stronger it'll be. So let's pop you back up there. So that's just very loosely held in just now. We will be going in to make it stronger. I keep reiterating this point for some reason. I'm not sure why. Normally at this point I would ask everybody in the comments to see how they are, because I'd be live, but I'm very lonely just now. But tell me how you are in the comments watching this after the fact. So I'm going to grab some more blue and we're going to fill in quickly all of the bit where we're going to have blue, basically. So when I'm laying this down, I'm going to lay it horizontally just because I really like the effect of it being horizontal. Because the different way you lay down the fibre will give you different effects. Now don't worry if you're going over the lines a little bit. That's the reason we're starting at the back and working forward, so that you can go over the lines, but you still want to be able to know where your lines are. There we go. That's starting to fill in now. I will start felting in a second, I promise. I'm just popping it all in so that we know how much we've got. There we go. And now loosely, because at this stage it's really handy if we don't felt in too well, I'm using that word again, too strongly, the fibres. Because the really nice thing about felting is that you can, especially at these early stages, pull it off, move it, start again if you don't like what's going on. I'm just going to loosely felt in. We'll probably find areas that I've missed that I want to add in more, but they will come up slightly later on. Although I am going to add in a little bit more up here, just already. So I'm definitely going over again the area. Losing the horns a little there, but that's okay. There we go. So, like I've said 20 times in my ramblings already, so imagine you're a painter. To start off with, you would paint a sort of base layer of the vague colours, and then you'd go in with detail on top and on top of that. So that's what we're doing just now. So don't worry about this being perfect. Don't worry about it being a little bit messy, but because we're just laying down the basics. So now I'm going to add in the green down the bottom. We've got our lovely rolling hills. Now the background in this one is quite plain. It's just really simple because I want all the focus to be on the cow, or the coo, or the cattle, depending on what you want to call it. I'm going off my mat a little bit here, so I'm just going to pull this off gently and reposition it. You do want to regularly pull it off and scooch it about anyway, or else it gets really felted into the mat. There we go. Now I can get right down to that bottom edge. So again, I'm still going horizontally here and letting it go over the edges. I love the effect of it spilling over the edges. Some people don't. And I have seen a few, because some of you guys have done this already. I've seen a couple in our Facebook group, and one of them, the edges were cut and it looked fantastic. So you can, after the fact, once it's all finished, chop off the edges to be nice and neat, or you can leave them rustic and flowing. Let's go for flowing. So I've taken a lighter green and put a base layer there. I'm going to take the slightly darker green in the kit now and make it just covering the lower sort of half of the hills there. If you've done landscapes before, or if you want to have a go and you've got some felt, you can make a more detailed backdrop, but I'm leaving it quite simple because the cow, I want coo here very much to stand out and the backdrop just to be kind of incidental. There we go. So that's a very loose background in there. I might go into it further and do a little bit more later on, but I reserve the right to just leave it as is. Excellent. Okay, so we have hills, we have sky. Let's start doing some cows. I'm going to start with the darker areas, put a base on the darker areas, and then work on top of that. So we're going to have a look at, let's see, the eyes, around the face, around the nose, and in the ears. So let's find his ears. Ooh, I'm losing needles. I'm going to fold this back a little on itself there, so I can get a better view of the ear. There we go. Let's pop in a little. Now this is not going to be precise. Do not worry. Oh, and I haven't mentioned this yet. So there's a few stages to a felt picture. Stage 1 is it's an absolute state. It's never going to look like what it should. This is a normal stage. This is the stage we're at now. Stage 2 is actually, yeah, I can see stuff. This is happening. Stage 3 is, oh my god, I love it. And then stage 4 is, oh, I hate it. What have I done? And then it goes round and round again. Okay, so let's pop in his other little ear shadow. Gonna pop in. Ah, I remember this happened last time. The shadow for his eye, for which I kept calling last time his eyeshadow. If this cow wishes to wear eyeshadow, I am all for that. We also last time, So a little bit of backstory. I normally do these live. I have people that watch along and felt along at the same time as me. They join me every month. It's brilliant fun. But last time the internet just gave up on me and I kept cutting out. They were trying to follow along and folded like amazingly well. I saw the finished ones. I'm so proud of them all. But normally we would chat away. Like they would chat in the comments as we're going. And so that last time we were discussing the name that we should call this cow. There were some brilliant names. And I'm gonna try and remember them now. Though apparently my memory has just wandered off. There was definitely Henry and Harry, and I think Hetty was in there as well. Morag. You can name your cow whatever makes you happy. So that it looks very odd. Don't panic. It will look odd for a while. There we go. So let's now work a little bit of the... I'm trying to remember what order I did this in last time. But let's go for putting some body in. So I'm going to take the brown that we've got the most of. So we've got a few different browns. We've got the chestnut brown. We've got this sandy brown, orangey brown, and a pale brown? Pale white? Cream. There we go, a cream colour. So we're going to grab this chestnut first and work an all over base layer of the brown. So there's a few tricks that we're going to do to make it look properly like hair. So we're going to grab each of these little individual tufts, should we say, that we've pulled off. Going to fold them in half. So we've got a flat end and two ends going down the bottom. And I'm going to start at the base of the cow. And I'm just going to felt in sort of the top 3/4 and leave the bottom loose. And we're going to work our way up. So folding it in half over itself and working our way up the body of the cow. So you can see I'm pulling it and then spreading it out slightly because we don't need it as thick as it comes off the top. Again, I love this shaggy mane. Oh, that's something from the last one. Somebody mentioned that my cow looks windswept and interesting, as the big yin would say. So there was a debate as to whether we should name the cow Billy or whether that was reserved for goats. So now I'm working up again. Now you don't want to go too thick here, in case we run out. We should have enough. Just working up to the top. There we go. And that looks amazingly like fluff, but we're going to make it look even more like fluff as we carry on. Because the Highland cows are famous for their amazing hair that they have on them. So they have a double coat. They have a long waterproof outer layer and then they'll have a softer downy under layer. So the makes them perfect for our Scottish Highland weather, which is generally wet and cold. There we go. And Highland cows can come in a vast range of colours. So you get anything from... Sorry, I'm getting distracted by placing some wool. You get anything from almost entirely black down to the reds and the oranges, the yellow, tans, duns, right to silvery grey, so that whatever colour your cow comes out as is entirely accurate. So if you do more or less of different colours, it's just a different coloured cow. I was doing a little bit of research into cows. Normally I don't for my landscapes, but I did this time. Be impressed. And they're one of the oldest breeds that was registered. That was first registered in 1895, I want to say, which is a long time ago, and there was two distinctive strains, the Outer Isles one and the Highland one. The Outer Isles one was slightly smaller and darker, and the Highland one was a bit lighter. But I believe they sort of amalgamated into one breed now. So now that we've got his body filled up, we're going to work a little bit. So around this facey bit, I'm not so much going to lay flat. I'm going to scrumple it up a little bit, because there's a little bits of like shorter fluff there just below the eye. And now don't worry if you feel like we're not putting any shading in, although we have got a little bit of base shading. We are going to go over it again. There we go. And now we're going to do, might as well do the ears. With the ears again, mostly scrumfling. Oh, I've left my phone on making noise. Oh dear. I normally turn that off. In fact, I'm very briefly going to just tell it to be quiet. There we go. Silence. Nobody can get in touch. Now, so I'm scrumfling up the ears again. The thing about the ears is they will probably be a bit wonky. That is entirely fine. I think if you try and find a Highland cow in the wild that has perfectly even symmetrical ears, you will not find it. I know my ears are different shapes, and I'm fine with that fact. So I'm not too worried about getting perfectly even ears. I want to get them vaguely, I'm going to move you across so you can see the rest of them, vaguely symmetrical, but it's accurate to life if they're a bit wonky. And again, I know it looks, well, I am just going over the previous colour underneath, but that's okay. We're layering. There we go. Now, let's get the horns in before we do the luxurious mane. I may be making up words now. There we go. So just when you're pulling it off, it will distort it slightly, and at this early stage you can just wiggle it back. You can see how lightly this is felted in, barely any. But we are going to go over it. I've also noticed how squinty he is. There we go. Better. Pushing and pulling and wiggling is perfectly acceptable just now. I'm also going to take a little bit off those ears. Put it round to the corner. There we go. Okay, let's get the horns and the nose in before we do his fringe. Now the horns, again, looking at quite a lot of Highland cows for this. No two horns are the same. The horns, some of them are up horns, they're massive, some are tiny, some are down horns. Anything you do will probably be right. So with the horns, I'm going to use, again, I'm going to fold it in half, but this time I'm going to sort of smoosh the end together so it comes almost like a horn shape, and use its own shape to define where it goes. I'm going to do the same again on the other side. I think these horns are a little bit smaller than the last ones, but that's okay. All the horns. You can kind of measure see if it's going to be the same. There we go, and then pop that on the other side. So again, we're just using the natural shape of the wool. Have a double check. I think they look fairly even. I'm in for a first go. Sometimes I take them off and do them again, but I'm pretty happy with these. Again, I feel like I will keep reiterating this. We are still blocking in quite quickly, so don't spend too much time on anything, because we're going to go back and fiddle later on. Just want to get the, what colour am I missing? Oh, I'm missing a brown. I knew I was missing a colour. Hold on 1 second. There we go. Missing, so there's another brown in your kit that I've left out of mine when I was getting it together a minute ago. So we've got this Moorit brown that is, it's actually a natural coloured brown. It's gorgeous. So we're going to use this to put some shadows in the horns. We're going to start off with a tiny, I've started using this word now, tiny amount of the darkest brown at the tip and going down a little to create some shadow. But we're going to go over that. So look how tiny this amount is. I also reserve the right to remove anything that I've done if I feel it's not working. And now with the Moorit, that middly, let's compare it to all the other browns. I know it's a mess already. This. I'm going to grab that and a little bit more than the black, but we're going to fold it in half again, but we're going to do it the opposite way this time, because they tend to have, let's move it there. They tend to have darker at the end of their horns, where they've had sort of the longest time to grow, and then it fades down. I'm going to put a little bit of shadow all the way under there. Give it some depth. Because their horns can be quite dark. I know I've used a lighter colour for most of the horns, but they can be almost black in some cases. And light. So it's whatever you've done is probably right. Let's put it that way. And again, doing what I did in the other one, I'm putting a bit of shadow underneath. Now remember, the horns will not be symmetrical on natural animals, so don't worry too much about getting them perfectly symmetrical here. And then we're going to put in a good amount going up from the base. Again, so I've taken a little bit, folded it in half, and just using the ends to naturally fade up to create that shadow at the base. Once we put his fringe on, I might add a little bit more. And the same on the other side. There we go. So we've got the rough workings of some horns. I'm pretty happy with them. Oh, and I've lost needle. So now, soon we're going to do a good all over felt just to get everything sort of locked into place. But first we have to do the last little bit of quick detail that we need to get in. And I've got some fluff on my face that is tickling me. Right, let's get this nose in. So with the cream yarn, I have so much fluff on me right now. I'm going to grab this, and I am going to, for the nose, scrumfle it up and place it in there. I know we're doing cream on cream, but it does make a difference. Because we want the nose to stand forward and proud. That's just slightly different. Just filling in that beautiful square nose. And wiggle about all the bits that you like. Now, the hardest part with the nose is the nostrils. Now, I've said this before, and I'm going to say this again. They won't be even in real life. But let's sort of attempt to make them. So I'm going to take 2 lots. In fact, I'm going to half this. 2 lots of roughly equal amounts of the black. I'm going to, again, I love this. This is my technique of choice these days. Fold them in half. And I'm going to scrumple up the base. Now, looking at this already, that's far too much. So I'm going to half this again. You see, wisps is what we're down to now. Ooh, that's a good word. I like that word. Wisps of wool. Scrumple up one end, but leave the other end up. So now I'm going to place the scrumpled end with, so it goes up. There we go. You can see it's slightly bulbous there. Getting thinner and going up. Oh, I might put some more in. I'm going to do the same again. Scrumpling up one end. Now trying to get it vaguely even. This is when one needle and you're sort of stabbing with a direction. So now I'm going to move that down a wee bit and put a tiny bit more on that one there. There you go, that's a bit better. And that one needs, oh, my tummy's about to rumble. That one needs a little bit thicker up there. And you can wiggle about with placement, especially at this early stage. But I'm fairly happy with that. And we're going to take the Moorit again and put a little bit of shading around the sort of outside of his nose. It is just tiny amounts, but this just makes it a little bit. I keep covering up his face with wool. And again on the top. So this is my 3rd one that I've done now, due to technical issues. But every one looks different. But I just love every one as well. I think they're all wonderful. Okay. That's that. Mostly. Again, we're still at the blocking out stage. So that's just a blocked out nose right there. And now is the fun bit. I'm going to do the sweepy hair. The windswept and interesting. So with the lightest brown as a base, though we don't need too much, because we're going to go over it with quite a few other colours. Again, we're folding in half, letting the tail, so we're going to pop that up there, and then felt it coming down and sideways, because we are known for a slight windy weather up here in the Highlands. Again, folding in half and filling in. Now, In a minute we're going to start putting colour in, and that's when it's all going to come together. Putting colour in? We already put lots of colour in. What am I talking about? Putting... I want to... this might sound weird. Putting in the cow's highlights and shading. They've been to the hairdresser. They've got frosted tips. And then there's another little bit of hair that we can't forget. It just comes down. Comes down there and blows out that way. I might shorten that in a minute. It's looking a bit long. Maybe I won't. Maybe I like. It's kind of, yeah. We'll see. I reserve the right. I reserve the right to change my mind and be wrong. Okay, that is the best. I'm getting very excited about this. The best fun part, right? So before we get to have any fun, or more fun than we're already having, because this is really quite fun, I'm gonna do an all over quick stab of everything. And I keep knocking this camera. I am so sorry. Just to kind of block it in a bit. So after tonight, I haven't mentioned this yet, after tonight we're not going to completely finish the picture. We're going to get all the colours in, it's all going to be there, but it's not going to be properly felted in, because you need to give it a good all over stabbing, make sure there are no holes, yada yada yada, for a good sort of half hour after we've finished putting in all the colour. So what I always recommend is we get everything blocked in tonight and then come back to it in a few days. Don't try and finish it tonight, because you'll see when you come back to it there might be a few things you want to change, there might be a few things that you hated before but love now. If you are having issues and you're not sure about the sort of how it's coming together, there is a few tricks. So one thing, because when you're staring at something for so long, you can easily sort of go sort of almost blind to it. You want to step away from it, get a cup of tea, go and do something else, come back and look at it with fresh eyes. You can also hold it up, look at it in a mirror, take a photograph of it really helps sometimes. So the photograph will sort of give you a fresh perspective on how it looks. Because your eyes lie to you a lot of the time. It also helps if you send a photograph to somebody else and they just tell you it's amazing. But yeah, so there's a few things. So when you come back to it after a couple of days, you will find a big difference. Okay, right, so we had a good all over felt. He's starting to look very cute. But let's put in some highlights and colours. Oh, hiccup, sorry. Yep. I'm going to grab these two. And again, I'm going to use this word because I love it now. Wisps. So we're just going to take wisps, fold them in half, pin them down at the top, and then let them come down. So it's just tiny bits. We're going to go in with the light orange, we're going to go in with the medium, we're even going to put in some of the dark brown. So just play up all the different colours and you'll see the texture just absolutely appearing, and the definition of that hair. I'm going to work on the top. I think he needs to come up a little bit higher there. Better because you want it to kind of be coming over the horns, if that makes sense. So we're going to spend a wee bit of time doing this. How long have I been rambling nonsense for so far? Oh, only 40 minutes. Excellent. It's like I've done this before. But it takes a wee bit. I think that, yeah, it was like an hour and a half last time. Oh, so key important part with his fringe the, like your hair if you've been standing out in the sun all the time, because we get so much sun in Scotland, the tips are lighter than the rest. So I'm going to grab tiny bits for the tips and not fold them in half and make a sort of concerted effort to fade up the tips so they're darker at the bottom. Right, I'm going to put in some of the, so when I'm using the darker one, it is again tiny wisps. It doesn't need much. So tiny I just lost it. Oh no, there it is. There we go. So what other cow facts did I have? There were some very exciting ones. But they have all disappeared. Oh yes, one of the ones that I really quite enjoyed is that another name for Highland cattle back in the day was house cattle. And they'd be your house cow, which I thought was incredibly cute that you would have just as, I know it probably didn't live in the main building with people, but you'd have your little pet cow that would just give you enough milk for you and your family for the day. So I'm going to work a little bit of the colour again into this escaped fringe side. I make that a little shorter, I think. So I'm going to just pull that out. Get rid of the fluff. I try and keep my desk tidy as I'm going, but it doesn't always work. There we go. There we go, that's better. So I'm going to put some highlights in the, not highlights, yeah, highlights, the orange in the ears as well, just at the sort of the tops of the ears. I want to move that little dark, I'm going to switch up the ears a little bit and move that little dark spot slightly further down. There we go. Shove it in under there. So with the ears, I'm going to take some of the orange and kind of scrumple it, because his ears are sort of behind his horn there. Highlight there, and I'm going to add a bit of highlight on top. Perfect. Highlight? Nope. Low light. Darkness. There we go. So that's one ear looking a little bit more realistic. I might put a little bit of the medium, but I mean the sandy colour in. Excellent. So you can see with this ear, I've done a sort of horizontal line there with lighter on top, a little dark horizontal line, and then lighter on the bottom. So I'm going to do the same for this other ear. I was clearly distracted at the beginning. It's because I didn't have my usual guys chatting to me. My, as I like to call them, my squishies. And again, we're not too worried about getting the ears absolutely perfectly the same on both sides. Because it's, I mean, it could be flicking one ear. They might just have odd ears. They're a little bit too uneven for my liking right now though, so I am going to work a little bit on this one. I think it needs to be a little bit bigger. That's better, and then put in a little horizontal line there. You need a little bit more shading, just because that hair that's coming over will cause perfect. Well, I'm happy with it, and that's all that matters. Again, I'm putting some of this lighter one there. Excellent. Now, so we've worked a bit, it's a bit too solid. Pull that apart a little bit. Yay! Excellent. And now we're going to do the same. So we haven't finished. I'm going to add a lot more in, colours and stuff in here, and work on here. But I want to continue with the sort of sketching stuff in. And we're going to get some highlights in his body as well. So we're going to do the same as what we've been doing all afternoon, evening, whatever time it is you're watching. Take a little bit, fold it in half. And fix it down. And we're just going to keep doing that. Let's get rid of one needle there. For all over his body. You can go a little bit. Go mad. Have fun. Some lower bits in down here. I'm going to put a bit more shading around his face because I worry it's not standing out quite enough. How are you guys doing? Oh, normally you'd reply in the comments. Please reply in the comments after the fact. I will read them and love them all. Thank you. Again, we can put in some dark highlights, dark highlights, some low lights. But just repeating what we've done on the fringe, all over the body. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this and scrumple it up. Not too much, but just sort of around, doing a sort of shadow below his chin and around the edges a little bit more than what ended up being underneath. So although you can still see some bits of it, I don't think it was enough came through. But don't go too a little but not too harsh. Not too much. Does that even make sense? Because we've got oh my, I finished my cup of coffee just before I started this and could do with another one. That's looking a little bit better. I'll fiddle with that later and put in. So the wonderful thing about needle felting is layering. So I can put in a layer of dark and then I can put in a layer of light on top of it, and it will just blend it really nicely and make it not too harsh. And you can fiddle with little bits, pulling bits apart. It's all about the layering. There we go. So maybe a little bit dark. I might go over it with a little bit of lighter, but it's good to have it there. Oh, we can put in some of that Moorit as well. Where is it hiding? Just little bits. Just the more colours, not the more colours, but the more of these colours that you pop in, the better the depth. I feel like he needs a bit more sandy in his back. So you can't even see on the camera how little I'm putting in, just to spread it over the whole kind of area. Because the colours in these cows are spectacular. What were my other cow facts? I'm sure I had some more. They're a good all-round cow for milk and meat, although I don't believe they're milked very often anymore these days. And they're crossed a lot. They're also quite small, as cows go, and super friendly. They have a I got distracted halfway through my sentence and gave up, sorry. They have quite a strong social hierarchy, and so they'll be really good to keep around. Quite. There we go. Okay, we're starting to get somewhere, and we're only at 52 minutes. Excellent. I thought this was going to be longer. I'm starting to get really happy with this. I need to work on his nose. I need to work on his eyes. So at the moment I'm looking at my screen, because my screen shows me what the camera sees. So I'm using my screen to give myself fresh eyes, because I'm looking at this at a sort of sideways angle, so as not to get my head in the way of the camera, which makes it slightly more interesting for felting. I've noticed his nose is a little bit bulbous on top. I want to flatten that down a wee bit. That's better. What's going on here? I'm just going to ramble and fiddle with stuff for the next sort of 10-15 minutes and make zero sense in what I'm actually saying. So hopefully you've got something that looks similar-ish to what you can see here. It's not going to be the same, but... Or if it is the same, I'll be... Ooh, something went wrong there. Bad things happen to the eye. Let's take it out and start again. Ah, that's better. Don't know what I did there. I did something. There we go. And I did on the last stream that I did, I put a little highlight in his eye. So I'm going to try again this time. So I'm going to take the cream that we've used for the horns and the nose. This is like the most minuscule amount. And pop that in. Yes! Pop that in there. Excellent. I kind of want to pull the eye down a little bit. I feel like the eye might be a little bit too high up. What do you reckon? Yeah, I like it a little bit further down, so I'm going to have to fill in that little bit. So I'm going to lift up his fringe and scooch in a tiny bit of brown there, so that he's got a little, so his eye is a little bit lower. So this is a fiddling stage. That's better. And this is, I think, the most fun stage. I love just noodling about and changing. It's amazing how much difference a tiny change can make. And you'll notice a change as well when we go over it and give it a good felting all over, because that'll lock everything in. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm concerned his nose is too big down there. Let's scooch your nose up a little bit. Now, and on the last time as well, so I'm just showing you how I do this and design this stuff. But you can change it and do whatever you like as well. So I'm going to pop in a little, because on one of them I gave him a little mouth and that was kind of cute. So I might see if he suits a mouth. So you can do a couple of different ways. So you can just go straight across there. He looks a little bit, yeah, I like that mouth. He's got a little sort of wry smile at that side. I can actually mirror that and see if we can give him a wee smiley mouth. Excellent. Right, so if I'm going to give him, I like him with a mouth, but I'm going to need to push that in just a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to do a little bit more shadow with the Moorit under the mouth so that it pushes it back a little bit. Because the sort of top half of the mouth would be over and making a little bit of a shadow. There we go. Isn't that cute? I'm quite happy with that mouth. So again, you can have a mouth or not a mouth. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to put some more shadows. I feel like his nostrils are too stark a contrast. So I'm going to put some shadows underneath the nostrils. And again on the other side. That's better. Now, what else is missing? You're not going quite up. And yes, I am talking to the wool. It's perfectly normal, she says, hopefully. We're going to put in a little bit of work on this area here more. So I'm going to put in some shadow around the edge of his face. That's better. And blend that sort of up and around the nose. Blending that down. So it can go a little bit darker here because this sort of area is quite hidden and will be in a little bit of shadow. I mean, the concern with me today is because I'm not doing this properly live. I've got like the nice time limit I set for myself. I could just do this all afternoon. And that would be dangerous. I mean, it wouldn't be dangerous, it would be amazing. I'd love it, but I do have to sort of stop at some point and say, that's it for today, and come back later on in a couple of days. And finish him off. So we've got some nice colours, we've got some nice fading in there. I'm pretty happy with how his face is looking. Got a very cute eye. Horns I'm happy with. Might put a little bit more shading in the horns. But yeah, my advice is to just keep looking away, having sips of tea. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to very briefly pull it off the mat, see how that goes. Give it a good felting all over, but that's me at just an hour. I'm going to pull that down to let you see it. Yeah, right, I'm going to give it a good 5 minutes felting all over, because you'll notice stuff changes and it sort of pulls it together when you do this. And then I'm going to call it a day, call it a night. Hopefully you guys have had a brilliant time and have the cutest little cow. The ones that I have seen from the failed felt along have all been absolutely amazing. I absolutely adore them. And they've all got their own little unique personalities, and I am so impressed with the guys that have done it so far. You can see them on our Facebook group. The link should be in the description of this video. So you can see what I'm doing is just going all over and stabbing. But yeah, feel free to join the Facebook group, show us what you've done. I do love seeing them all. You can see there it's all nice. So very cute. So different from this one, but I love both of them. But then I'm biased, it's like children. So yeah, another sort of 15-20 minutes of this dabbing all over in a couple of days time, and it should be nice and felted in, nice and finished. I have concerns about this. You can go down there, that's better. You can go down there. Got a little bit of a... There we go. Excellent. Well, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. Take your time. If you need to fast forward, rewind, watch it again. Ooh, ooh. I'm just knocking my light over. Never mind. You can watch it again, rewind it, fast forward it, turn me on mute. Yeah, I highly recommend shutting me up. But you have felted a beautiful Highland cow. Thank you so much for joining me. Remember, and do the YouTubes, the liking, commenting, subscribing. I really appreciate every one of you. I just reached over 100 subscribers. and it made me so happy. Yep, I'm gonna go have another coffee, upload this, and I look forward to seeing your finished felt alongs. Thank you, my squishies!